we looking for life partners or are we making business acquisitions? What you think about that? Look at the internet right now. Look in the field of podcasting, the graphics, the comment sections. It's like we have an entire generation of people walking around with clipboards, interviewing each other for the position of significant other, right? And the sad reality of it is that there's this great demand for six-figure incomes, a specific height, a specific weight, a specific body type, and an absolute submission. All right, like do whatever that makes me happy. And ultimately, all of this is wrapped up. All of these demands are wrapped up into two very, I would say, very catchy, sexy sounding words, but they're very dangerous. High value. But what if I told you that this term high value or this high value movement is the biggest scam currently destroying modern relationships? Today, we're going to be taking a sledgehammer to this checklist. We're going to be exposing the problem with the concept of high value. Because right now, society is using this made up ideology to justify material obsession over genuine human connection. So we'll be selling a mirage of security while completely ignoring the foundation of which is real, healthy relationships. So look, let's get comfortable. I'm definitely not a relationship expert, but grab your notepad because today, what I'm going to do is put on my master coach, life coach hat on, and we're going to go deep into this ideology. We're going to make sure we expose it. And more importantly, we're going to put some options out there to where we get back from the justified obsession with material things and get back to the basis of what all relationships should be about, human nature. So look, welcome back to Jay's Corner. Of course, I'm your host, Coach Jay. And if you know here, you know you need to know what our mission is right out the gate, right? We talk about a lot of topics from politics, from religion, from health, but ultimately the ultimate mission right out the gate is allies, not adversaries. Even if we agree to disagree, it don't mean I have to hate you. We still can agree to disagree and walk away and have something in common. So we don't do gender wars here. We do healing, we do growth, and we try to do mental clarity here. And so, what I want to do, I want to start with our topic today, the high value lie. All right. I want to start with the biggest lie that the high value movement tells us, and that's the illusion of security. Now, I'm going to preface this. We all know that it takes resources to live, right? We all know that if we want to live a certain quality of life, we live in a world where money can open up certain doors more or less than anything else. But that's not what we're talking here. And I think that's the problem with this term high value. It kind of floats between that gray area of something that's realistic and objective versus something that's narcissistic and a cover up for, I would say, greed and obsession. And so we're going to try to break down this illusion that high value is equivalent to security. So when you hear people talk about a high value man or a high value woman, I always think first, what are the metrics? Like, what are the value system, the KPIs in my world, they're called? What are these metrics, right? It's always money, status, looks, and influence. As a matter of fact, social media has full all out adopted this ideology, right? There used to be a point in time if you put your, when you're doing your profile and you put what are you? Like I'm an author, entrepreneur, or a different type of job. There is now an actual thing called influencer, and people are paid for it, right? So just to kind of set the foundation of how far this high value ideology, which you will find nowhere else, but we'll get into that, how it has taken over and almost became, it's just like you say something over and over, it becomes right by default, right? So the culture tells us that if you secure a partner who meets this rigid criteria, you're going to be safe, you're going to be secure, and you're going to live a life happily ever after. But I need you to hear this one vital statement. Material success does not equal emotional safety. I want you to think about this. You can marry a millionaire, right? Who is emotionally bankrupt. You can find somebody who checks every single physical box for the moment. Real life hits, but that moment that there's a job loss, a sickness, a family tragedy, when life be life and they don't have the emotional intelligence to stand by your side, right? So there's a difference between building a lifestyle and building a life. The checklist sells a lifestyle, but the relationship requires a builder's mindset. I want to tell you about an experience that I had as I was doing my notes on this podcast. It just popped in my head, so I want to share it with you guys. There was a point in time, a little while, long time ago, I was dating this young lady who fit the checklist. Attractive young lady, around about the same age at the time, was a counselor at a large and influential high school here in Dallas, Texas. Preacher's kid, if you will. For the most part, you would think that, man, this is a nice hub to work with, right? Financial stability was there. She had at the time, I think it was a 12-year-old son, single parent. So you would think that the hub is there. The material is there. The looks were there. Now, all these things that we talked about were there. The problem with this checklist of this high value, and for disclosure, I didn't look at her as high value, but this story of mine is going to serve the same intent, right? Or point out how just resting on those laurels actually makes you realize later on that there's no foundation. That's the point that I'm getting at. And so everything is going well in the whole 9 yards. Of course, when it's time to eat out, come over, do all these things, the things that material things will allow you to do. Perfect, 10 out of 10. Who would frown on that? Who would run away from that? But as we start getting to know each other a little bit more, as her son starting to get to know me more and bonding with me and things of that sort. And this is a true story. Now it's time to look for those other prerequisite things. And the point that I'm making here is not everyone who has all these things that I was talking about earlier, not knocking them, but we forget that it doesn't mean that they have the emotional intelligence to be able to stand by your side, let alone their own side in their own life. So you would think going to church, church choir director, counselor, I think the year that we was talking, I think she got like a teacher of the year, employee of the year, which is a big deal. I mean, she's a counselor. I mean, you're going up against teachers, other staff, and things like that. So you have all this, all right? Going to conventions to speak. That was another passion of ours. Mental wellness, health, and all those things. So you have all this stuff to the forefront. One night, she invited me over her parents' house, which was the preacher, right? Preacher of a decent church here in Dallas, Texas. Meet the family. Everything's going great in the whole 9 yards. The day before, her son, because we had grow close, 12 years old at the time, had had texted me asking me to buy him condoms. Now, the first thing I do, I get him on the phone, get her on the phone. Hey, be quiet. Just want you to know this, pull her in on this so she can, it ultimately her decision. So to make a long story short, I kind of talked him down and helped him revisit the options, or at least I thought I did, of thinking long term about the decision that he's about to make. So he made a decision, no condoms. He's just going to take, I guess, the young lady to to the movies. Now his mother was on the phone and heard that whole conversation. Next day, she'd take him to the movies and dropped him off. Hits me up. Hey, do you think that was a good idea? I think you need to go get your son. Like, I'm a man. Like, you don't want to provide that opportunity. She go get him after the movie. We go over to her uh, family's house. There's a lot of people there in the whole 9 yards. It's just like this big family event, you know. Well, for disclosure, they come from for money, right? So, this is a nice 2-story house, a lot of dignitaries there in the whole 9 yards. She is quote unquote keeping an eye on her son. Somehow, some way, when we left that party, her son is just very quiet. The young lady that I was shocked, like, again, this is her son though, but in my mind, I'm like, "You're He's here. She's here. Okay. Well, she'll watch him. That's a done deal. Get home. I'm noticing something different. I go up to her son. I say, hey, man, you need to tell your mother. He just broke down crying. He has had intercourse with this young lady while in the house and everything's going while she supposedly had been watching him. This is where the emotional intelligence comes in. Hey, gotta tell your parents, let's be forthcoming with that, right? He has to have some type of discipline talk to what happened in the disrespect of that. And never forget he was getting ready to go on a piano trip or whatnot. And again, you have to have that borderline between ultimately this is her child versus the emotional intelligence that there's two people should have, right? When it's come to addressing a child in the act that they just did. I say all that to say, while all those things was going wrong and just giving you a glimpse of the story to understand, what I come to find that there was no emotional intelligence involved in the personal decision making. I know how to keep the life and look the life in the whole 9 yards, but she was more involved in covering up, more involved in even with her parents. Even when we all sit down, the whole thing shifted from the child and helping him understand and holding him accountable to the cover up. You don't want it to get out in the church. You don't want to give it out because of the prestige or who they were in the whole 9 yards. So I share that because I'll be going back to that story to show that, yeah, all those other things that could be there. But what I soon found out, unfortunately, is that like what I was talking about earlier, when life happens, don't assume that because of these things are here, which is all good and dandy, that when life happens, people will be able to respond emotionally intelligent. And I think the danger of it is when we sell out that emotional intelligence because we get comfortable. Because I could have went on with it. Hey, it's not my son, I mean, he looked at me as a male figure in his life at that time, but I could have just went on with it. But I had to make a decision that that's not something that I want to grow with, right? I want my foundation to not be made up off the things, which I think that's the problem of the illusion of the security. Yes, there will be security there for some things, but there are some things that money just can't buy. And so I want you to reflect on your past relationships, maybe not as that traumatic as mine, maybe it's worse. And think about this and drop your answers in the comment sections. Have you ever dated someone who looked perfect on paper but made them feel incredibly lonely in the same room? Have you ever been with someone, check all the boxes, but what you went them is it's just something that it just won't connect, right? So that's the mirage of the high value list. You check all the boxes and everything looks good, but deep inside, if you honest with yourself, just like I had to be, it was just something that I knew it wouldn't have ever allowed us to mesh together as one. And so we really got to dissect this and really think about, like I said, this ideology that we have been told high value sounds good and sexy to use and we justify. But now, like I said, let's get into the illusion and break it down and see if there is a reality in it. And so what I want to do now, let's get into the controversy. Let's talk about why people really love the high value concept. And I found this very polarizing. The reason why people are so in love with the high value concept is because it is the ultimate accountability loophole. And think about it. Demanding a high value partner justifies overlooking the values that should matter and it allows you to prioritize material things without the guilt of being called out for it. So it allows you to take these tangible things, my money, my looks, my stature, my size, and all these things, and it allow you to put that on the forefront to cover up what you're lacking in interpersonal skill set and emotional intelligence. And you never have to talk about because you hold these up and then you wrap them around, well, no, this is security. I don't really need nobody. I'm a good person. So you overvalue really when you're talking about high value, you overvalue only certain aspects that you bring to the table. And so those things that you need to work on, those things that you do not possess, you never have to deal with them. Have you ever heard the term sometimes people can be a beautiful, ugly person? You have the looks, but when you open up your mouth, how you treat people, how you talk to people, it makes you ugly. And so that's the problem with the high value. It's the ultimate accountability loophole. It switches the things that that affects people more internally, and it props all the tangible things up and justifies what's in the background, and you never have to talk about it. So, for example, let's say it's like people say, trying to think of a good example. I only care about money. If people said that, society would call them shallow, money hungry, right? That's you don't want to be known as a person to say I only care about money. But if you say I know my worth and I require a high value provider, then suddenly society applauds you for having standards. So that's called standards. Who don't like good things? Who are not trying to aspire to have good things, right? So why would you have to qualify that as a value or as a characteristic of who you are? So it's a ruse. It's an illusion, like I said earlier. It allows me, it gives me permission to say the uncomfortable thing that I know society would judge me rightfully on and make me self-correct, but it allows me to say it in a way that's passive and I get away with it. So it's almost like aggressive and passive aggressive. If I just come up and start cussing you out, man, what's wrong with him? Is there something wrong with him? But I can sit there and be quiet and ignore you or give you the silent treatment or one word answers. I can be passive aggressive and I can always defend that. Well, I'm just tired. I don't feel like, I just had a long day. Now I just need some time by myself. I can be passive aggressive knowing that I'm justifying the same thing. I'm just finding it another way. And so that's the hypocrisy in high value. Like I said, again, it's the ultimate accountability loophole. So now the other person comes and talks about the thing that affected them or the affecting relationship, the high valued person, so that we can throw these things up. And what do you have to match it? It's not even a part of the conversation. So it's got to be something wrong with you. So now you got to go change your emotion, your thought process, because look, hey, I know my worth. That's why I'm treating and reacting to you like this. I require a high value provider. So some got to be wrong with you. If you got a problem with me, some got to be wrong with you. That's the biggest narcissistic mindset that I can actually think of. So the bottom line is that it's the same poison, it's just in a different bottle, and we fell for it. And some of us have bought into it ourselves, trying to be everything except ourselves to fit that narrative in hopes of that we're going to find that compliment. And so that's why there are times when they get together. We use the phrase, I have high standards, to mask the fact that we lack the capacity for grace, patience, and partnership. We use it to demean the human part of the equation. We use it to justify that I don't have to deal with that. I don't have to self-correct that because I'm so high value because of these things. right? These things I have, the looks I fit the standard of what society actually says, right? So again, we tucking it to nice words, but it exposes the fact of what we actually lack, and more importantly, those things that we lack that we choose not to want to deal with. And then just think about the transactional nature of it, right? If I bring X amount of money or Y amount of beauty to the table, I don't have to work on my trauma. And again, nothing wrong with looking well, dressing well, having nice things. But I think we all know when there is an overdoing of it to gain the same appreciation and attention that these other human characteristics should. So now it puts a premium on those things. Those things don't matter as much. Like I told you with the young lady that I used to talk to. Hey man, had a great job, counselor, preacher's daughter, go to church every Sunday, choir director. But all these things can't do anything when it comes to those human struggles we talk about, or just those life situations and circumstances that come up. And if she wasn't able to do it for herself, and you're teaching your son that, what do you think that equation would have looked like? And here I come into that equation. I would have had to would have just hop on board because I'm trying to keep those things, the good looking woman, or hey, she got this going on for her, to justify not dealing with the root issues. Well, wait a minute. That's not emotionally intelligent parenting to cover it up for him at 12. Let him go on the piano tour or whatever it was, and only worry about outside appearance. Like, you got a whole young man that's growing up that now has had sex and no one's talked to him about it, broke it down. Like, that's not emotionally intelligent. But how many people would just, again, put all that up under the cover because you got the things. You got the looks of what appear to be a high value person. When people have the mindset that I have X amount of money, I have Y amount of beauty, I don't have to work on my trauma. I don't have to work on my communication skills. My value becomes the shield against doing the actual inner work, right? And now my value is being dangled in front of you. If you want to keep this or gaslight you, hey, I'm the high value one. Something must be wrong with you because you can't value this. You don't see my worth. And now you have to choose. And you're sitting there thinking or wondering, now let me get on that level. Let me leave that alone. That's why there are times where you see people, and and we can look no further to celebrities, got all these things, and we ask ourselves, how in the world do y'all have drama? If this high value is there, because based on what the definition of high value is, and again, we're not painting a broad brush and saying everybody's like this, but I think y'all know the ones. I will not give them dignity by repeating their names on this podcast. But if you got all these things, and even some of us look up, well, that's a high value man, that's a high value woman. How in the world do you still have drama? Because those main things that you're shielding this value with, those things where you have to challenge yourself to do the inner work, you got two people who haven't done it, or one of them that haven't done it, and guess what? You're speaking Spanish to someone who speaks French. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say is that true value isn't something you acquire or display. All right. It's almost like sometimes there are some who live their life like social media. It's all for the display, and it's all justified through the rules of high value. So true value isn't something that you gain, go get, go buy, go to the doctor and fix your body up and say, okay, now it's on display. It's something that you practice. Character is what happens when the money is gone and the looks fade. And unfortunately, we are ruining ourselves by only holding on to the value of money and material things. And we're slowly fading away to where once we get those things, or sometimes when we don't get them, we don't know how to act. There's no foundation, no basis on who we are. So you have to ask yourself a question: how do you treat each other in any relationship, but even in an intimate relationship like the one I was telling you? And I had to ask myself, How did we treat each other when we have absolutely nothing to offer but our spirit? See, in that time when I was telling you, we were sitting, we went over to their house. We were sitting with, her mother, her father, again, first lady, pastor, and they even jumped on board with the covering up. So now the looks can't do anything. Money can't do anything. Job status can't do anything. In this space, a genuine spirit looking out for a young black man, a young black boy who's been there, done that, knowing the ramifications of the mistake he made, knowing that, hey, if we don't self-correct, if we don't use it as a teaching moment, those loving things in your spirit couldn't wasn't valued. And none of those things that would identify that most people say, oh, you had a high value woman. They didn't mean anything in that moment. And so you have to continue to ask yourself that question. How do you treat other people? Or how are you treated, or how you like to be treated when something happens with those things? When I don't have the looks, when I don't have the money, right? Ultimately, we all get old. How do we treat each other when those things are set aside? And do I still have that value the way I say I have it in the value of a person who we think is high value? So ultimately, what I realize is that there needs to be a mental reset. Like I said, we can go on and on and on. I wanted to give a brief overview of this high value lie. Because again, man, one thing that bothers me is when I hear things out there, and it's like it's becoming more and more prevalent in our society, where now it is wrong and people will attack you for addressing the dysfunction that is hurting us as a community. And if you don't hold it up, even if you bring it up, even if you speak on it, you'll be shunned. And but here on Jay's Corner, we speak truth to life, whether it's one person watching or whether it's a million people watching. And this is something I really want us to quit putting even the stress on ourselves. Some badges, some titles are not titles that we should want to put on ourselves. And we're going to talk about it here in a minute. So when I talk about that mental reset, that's where it has to start. Because sometimes you can hear something over and over and over, and you just accept it. Get online, you see it, see it in commercials, see it on TV. So now you find yourself, trying to be some, I liken it to like youngsters. I'm gonna have to get on you right quick. Y'all walk around here and listen to this music and all this stuff, and now you starting to try to really act like that. And like, bro, let keep it 100. The ones who are acting this stuff out, these laws is getting in their life, locking them up, taking their money, or unfortunately, they dead. You're only the ones who do it right. These people went to school and got knowledge, got understand the business, but here you are trying to be so because you done heard it so much. And that's the thing that we do not talk about. There's a lot of people out there that looks high value, but the behind the scene clips ain't nothing high about it, right? So that's why it's important, I say, to make a long story short, like learn who you are. Nothing wrong with having those things, but at the end of the day, if a person don't accept you for who you are, those intrinsic skill sets of who you are, of just being a genuinely good person, then guess what? What foundation you going to build it on? So we need a reset, a complete mental clarity reset when it comes to how we view people we want to spend our lives with. Because we've been shown that, hey, these are the top requisite things, and we're overlooking things. And man, we getting with people, we getting married, we getting in a relationship with people. And man, once we find out these people don't have no emotional intelligence, man, we realize that we done signed up for a life of hell. And one of the things that we need to do is we have to stop looking for high value assets and start looking for high character allies. What does a real foundation look like? Yeah, we know we need money to live. Yes, we want someone attractive, but what does a real foundation look like? It doesn't look like a checklist. It looks like emotional intelligence. It looks like the ability to be able to de-escalate an argument instead of trying to win it. It looks like conflict resolution. It looks like emotional intelligence. It looks like mutual respect and reciprocation. In that high value assets, you have to do something to keep them up. Any assets you have to do something consistently on a regular basis to keep it up or else it loses its value. Does that really sound like what a human should be, or quite frankly, what you should be? Now, when you turn your attention to being a high character ally, let's talk about that word ally. An ally doesn't look at you and ask, what can I extract from you to make my life better? We should already be making our lives better on our own. So it's not an scapegoat. An ally looks and asks, how can we combine our strengths to build something that's unbreakable? See, that's why it's interesting that people who once loved themselves couldn't stand to be from around each other. I'm talking about going to work. It's like, I got to get back home to baby. But unfortunately, years later, they're grabbing things and rushing to the divorce court. Did you really build something unbreakable? And again, we're not painting a picture that's what all divorces are for, but stay with me. Do we want to build something unbreakable, or like we said at the top of the podcast, did we build the foundation on these tangible things because society really overvalues these things? We're really too selfish to really say it and admit it. So we've just found a gray area and a sexy word, two words, high value, to make it feel good, to justify the way, to ignore those other things that even after the smoke clears of all those beautiful things, y'all didn't build a foundation. Think about it, go back to our COVID years. It's sad to say so many people was breaking up, not knowing how to live with each other. You don't even hear about it because that was the first time you was forced to have to deal. No, the looks didn't matter then. You're looking at this person months and months at a time. You couldn't get out, and money didn't matter. Wasn't no clubs to go through. Wasn't no hangouts for everybody sitting right there in their house, around their house. At one point in time, looking at TV, trying to find out what's this new thing called COVID was and how long it's going to affect and what impact it's going to have on our lives. Could you imagine those who haven't built this foundation together to be allies? Well, now you take all this stuff away, and guess what? It's easy to break something that wasn't built on something that's foundational. Because this is a newness. This is probably our first time I had to sit down, and we couldn't use those other excuses. Money, look, size, six figures. That didn't mean nothing. COVID touched everybody. All right. And so that's something as being an ally that you have to ask yourself, how can you combine our strengths to build something unbreakable? So once we build that, all the rest of that, that's icing on the cake. But if we build our foundation on that, where is that going to go? Which turns me to my other point. Look at the reality of growing old together these days. How many relationships are standing the test of time? How many people value it, right? Because we live in such a backwards world where we're okay with singlehood and, going from man to man, woman to woman. We're celebrating that, and to the point where there's almost no more reality of growing old together. Yeah, we celebrate our grandparents. No, we hold them up. Hey, they had this, they lived together forever. Where's that in our society? How is that a premium from our parents who made it, or our grandparents who made it? And we say the lip service, but what do actions show here in 2026? Does it show the reality of growing old together is still a main value? You think about it. The foundation of a 30-year marriage isn't built on a six-figure income or a specific body shape. It's built on shared history, likenesses, inside jokes, forgiveness, and the quiet moments of showing up from each other on a consistent basis. In other words, when life, they figured it out. Even if you can use some of those other things, nothing wrong with it, but that didn't become the main thing. That was the outlier. Those type of relationships work when you talk about Big Mama and them, and even some of our parents who worked that long, they were willing to put in the work. And as I say again, that's the problem with the high value. If you really look up under it as a microscope, it justifies and make it okay to not do the hard work. And it forces you, if you don't want to be on me, because I got these things that you like. I got the looks that you like, that's going to raise your status inside. I got the money. And if you want it, then you'll drop those things also emotional intelligence and things, forgiveness and conflict resolution, and you'll just join me. And now that's the power couple. And so the dysfunction just continue to grow until life comes in the way. And now somebody got to have emotional intelligence. Someone has to use conflict resolution. Now, let me get these things that we value and go on to somebody else. The cycle continues, and it's justified in our music, and it's justified on our screens, and we are glamorizing it. That's a whole nother podcast in itself, because now it becomes taboo when someone such as myself call a spade and call it right out. You're the outlier. Well, I'll be the outlier. We can't celebrate on one end what grandma and them had and realize the value. That's how we got here. That's how we were nurtured, for better or for worse. That's how our parents gained the help and assistance for that longevity, for those real life skills that they stood in and then just get up and go themselves and not think it's not a value right now that's going to help propel our children to have a chance to value that which mama and them had and grandmama and them had when we were their age. You can't have it both ways. So look, I want to challenge. I want to challenge our men, and I also want to challenge our women. Okay, because like I said on here, we don't do the gender bias, gender wars. Now, if you're right, you're right. You're wrong, you're wrong. But we're going to call a spade a spade. So I want to challenge the men that's listening to this. And again, I thank you for tuning in so far to the podcast. We're talking about the high value lie, right? We're putting this on his head. We're talking about the illusion that's found in the high value. The illusion of it really masks all the bad things that I know that the world won't accept and agree with, and it gives me the permission to put a spin on it and justify it and make me look dignified in doing these things. But as we've been talking about tonight, there's a lot of danger in that. And what it's doing is setting aside these things that, yeah, takes work and takes time. My therapist and I was talking the other day, but it justifies us, quite frankly, to not do a job that we don't want to do, but the job is still needed. And so, men, if you're listening, I want to ask you a question. And again, if you feel comfortable, drop it in the comments, inbox. Again, as I always say, all my inboxes are, it takes in consideration being a safe space, so you don't have to worry about anybody's eyes on it. Think about that, man. Are you focusing so hard on the grind that you're neglecting your own emotional availability? That toxic masculinity is killing us because we're placing value on ourselves or trying to fit even in the idea of being a high valued man or any variation of it. Again, we're not going to downplay it. Even if we don't use these exact words, the concept still applies. And we're doing all these things, and we're celebrating ourselves, and we're making it so equivalent to being a man. So on the flip side, there are some of us that we've done all of that, that we've drained ourselves literally, emotionally, to where we cannot now show up for the very people that we done all the providing for. Everybody in the house is dressed to the nines, two-story home, bills paid, big steaks and everything in the refrigerator, and we now cannot emotionally show up for those same people. And unfortunately, we can't show up for ourselves. So now, watch this, and this may step on some toes. The people in that household have not learned how to show up for you because that work is not being done. It's not being valued. That high value mindset is being overcompensated. But what can that do? How can that fix your emotional availability? We talked about that on our past podcast. There are times where men just want to just get away. Now if we want to get away, now there are times of thinking, hey, we don't love you, whatnot. Well, we don't deal with love. We deal within transaction. That's the true basis of high value. I love you because of these things. That's what I love is based on the conditions. So when you lose those things, I got to find a reason to go back and get those things because you ain't really see what's wrong with you. It's just not popular to say that. I'm leaving him and her because they no longer can provide the lifestyle. Matter of fact, some people actually said that's a whole nother scary place. Like, and justified. I was watching a video today. You should be able to provide the lifestyle. Oh my goodness. Lord forbid, life happens. And that's become accepted. That's an accepted mindset because it's not popular. It's not sexy to talk about emotional intelligence, conflict resolution, true reciprocation, standing in unconditional love. That's not popular. Uh, that's not something that everybody talks about. So just tuck all this dysfunction in these terms of being high value. qualified that equates that you don't really need these things and holds the other person accountable. What do you value? So man, ask yourself again, are you focusing too hard on the grind that you're lacking your own emotional availability in your own life? And then what I want my women out here, if you're listening, now I didn't say answer the question for each other, you know, but ask yourself based on your actual genders, especially if you're in a relationship, women, are you focusing so much on what a man can provide financially that you're ignoring a good man who simply wants to build with you? And be honest with yourself. And look, if that's your cup of tea, don't complain when those other things are needed. If you signed up for it and that's all you want, you don't get to be the victim after the fact. Especially you knew and you agreed to sign up just because guess what? I just like the things. I never forget when this podcast in its early stages. Matter of fact, I think it was another name. Shout out to Frankie, Carlos, Diana. Shout out to them. I hope they're doing well in their life journeys as they moved on. But we had a young lady who was telling her story, and I was so fascinated with this young lady story. I think she was a counselor or something like that. But long story short, she shared her story, and what started off as like just a mere conversation became something deeper. It was as if she started self-reflecting as she was talking to us. So she started out talking about her list, her checklist. Here are the things that I was taught, and when I was going up, I'm gonna get a man to do this, pop, 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 pop. So it just and she went through her list. And long story short, she would tell us how she got her list. But it was like something changed in her thought process and in her voice that as she realized everything she had on her list, she had a high value man. I think he was like a firefighter, had an extra job, got them to home, the kids in a nice school, a nice community where the schools are good. But she started asking herself, after he get off his job and go to his second job, when he come in, why don't he realize something small is taking out the trash? Why don't he realize that talk about my day? Talk about his day. You know, those intrinsic things. She soon realized that the very thing you have to be transparent and truthful with yourself, you can have the right idea, but the wrong process. And like I said before, although you don't have to use the words or intentionally be thinking versus high value versus highly intelligent ally, even if you're not thinking in those terms, the concepts is all the same. What she realized in real time is that she had the man that could provide and do all these things because through his toxic masculinity, some of us define ourselves that's all being a man. The problem with that is those other things that she wanted, you didn't ask for. I didn't sign up for that. You said you wanted these things. I gave you these things. And there was a moment in time when the smoke was there. Well, that was all that was wanted. Hey, we good. We living good high life. But when the smoke clears, you have to see the foundation. Those things are not there. And in his mind, they out of sight, out of mind. Because as long as I have the six-figure income, the looks, the status, the what, those are the things, those were the rules we played by. From that conversation, we didn't hear from her anymore. And unfortunately, well, I won't say unfortunately, they went their separate ways. They got a divorce. What starts off looking great, that we justifying, that we're okay with, that we pick and choose what we want to talk about, you won't see too many social media clips or Instagram pictures that convey that realness. See, you'll see all the stuff in the beginning. You'll see everything that the world and society says is high value. And you're locking your mind. You either need that, you either want that, or that's who you are, and that's what you aspire to be. But now we find ourselves and invested all that time and effort and energy because we figured we had the high value by that eye. And now we find ourselves, that ain't what it is. That's what wouldn't I should have valued in the first place. Now I gotta start over. And some of us go through that vicious cycle because we fall in love with those things so much. Hey, look at here. It's easy to just go find that and hope that, you know, I hit fool's goal again versus, man, let me go sit down and do the work. Let me go sit down and do the work myself so I can know exactly who I am. So the next time I look at who I want to be with, I'll know exactly who I'm giving to that person. And more important, because I know myself, I know exactly what I need versus what my wants are. So look, as we bring this home, I want to issue a challenge to everyone listening to my voice right now. And again, I greatly appreciate those who take the time and leave comments and inbox me. What I want to do right now in this space, I want to issue a challenge to you. Take out your relationship checklist. I want you to take it out, whether it's in your head, if you're written it down or whatnot. Take out that list of requirements you've been carrying around, even if there's something you're looking for. Hey, I'm looking for this in a relationship. I'm looking for this in my next guy. I'm looking for this in my next woman. Take that list of requirements you've been carrying around, the one that the internet and society and what have you have told you that you need to have. I want you to take a look at it, and I want you to mentally and or physically rip it up because it's a lie. It's a ruse. It doesn't exist. When you find people who have those things, again, nothing wrong with them, they will have also done the work on themselves first. That wouldn't be the only thing that's in their basket. They would have given them chances and sometimes be on their road to the 20, 30, 40-year relationships. If you want a relationship that lasts, 3 questions I want you to ask yourself. Not ask your partner, ask yourself and be brutally honest with yourself. If you really want a relationship, if you haven't found that person or if you're looking for them, ask yourself, do they feel like peace? That's the first thing. Do they feel like peace? Number 2, are they willing to learn and grow with me? Notice I didn't say, are they willing to learn and grow? Because everybody learn and grow at their own particular time. But are they willing to learn and grow with me? And then number 3, ask yourself, when the world is against us, Lord forbid, something happens to the money or something happens to the looks, all these things that we build as the foundation, for high value. When the world is against us and life be lifing and these things are affected, are they truly an ally or will they become an adversary? Do I have the capacity to still be an ally in those real moments, or will I become their adversary and add on to the real life things that they're dealing with? If you can answer those positively, you found someone of true immeasurable value. The rest is just noise. Don't lose good people with the facade of what high value man and woman should be out here in society. Look, you guys, I want to thank you for stepping into Jay's Corner today. I know this episode might have stepped on some toes. Hopefully, it has allowed us to start think about our own reality, kind of check us a little bit, kind of bring us back in, get into the foundation of who we are, and putting out there those things that we may have to work on a little bit, that we're kind of running ourselves in the grade to look good, be good, sound good, have a pocket full of money, but we riding inside. So this can be a challenging conversation. Um, I know it challenges a narrative that's very popular right now. Again, it's probably not the one that everybody want to hear because, it's automatically subconsciously high value something good, and so it's more of a defense. But you guys, as a life coach, it's my job to tell you what you need to hear, not just what you want to hear. And so I thank you for hanging on with me and allowing me to share that which that I brought on the podcast episode today. So if this episode resonated with you, if you gave it you a spark of mental clarity, if it woke you up to kind of want to revisit some things, please share it. If you know someone who needs to hear this, send it to someone. It's nothing wrong with that. Let's get back to making this the norm. Drop your thoughts in the comments on social media. Let's keep this conversation going. Let's keep the conversation going. I genuinely want to hear from you on the high value lie. Or if you feel that the high value needs to be defended upon based on what we broke down today. Either way, I want to hear from you. But look, until next week, keep your head up, keep doing the work, and remember, in this life, we gotta be allies because it's always better to not be adversaries. Until next time, this is your boy Coach Jay on Jay's Corner.